And record. So, okay, so just as a housekeeping measure, should there be an alert, we will continue. If there's obviously a siren, we will take a break. And once we get the all clear, we'll come back. If you yourself, wherever you might be, not in Malay Adumim, such as in Ashkelon, maybe, is just an example. You get a siren, just, skedaddle, and we won't pay attention to you. It's okay. Okay, what I want to do, I want to put on the screen the parak we're on. We've done the first 9 or so psukim, but I want to just reread them in Hebrew and English and move on to the next psukim and give you a little summary. This is the beginning of chapter 4. Just making sure it's the beginning. Yes. Okay, got it. Again, I'm not going to go into detail because we really did it. It's been, I know, been about 3 weeks, but I want to kind of catch us up to where we are tonight. For I was once a son to my father. Rach yachid lifnei imi, tender darling of my mother. I'm just going to read the English that's here. Vayoreni vayomer li, he instructed me and said, Lo yitmoch dvarai libecha. Let your mind hold on to my words. Sorry, vayomer li, he said to me, Yitmoch dvarai libecha, shmor mitzvotai vechyei. Keep my commandments and you will live. Knei chochma, knei vina, we talked about those. Al tishkach val tet meim refi. Do not forget, don't swerve from my words. Al tazveha v'tishmereka, hard to say that. V'titzreka, do not forsake her. She will guard you, love her, and she will protect you. And there's a reason I want to review it besides just reviewing it. It's going to come up. I'm going to give you a little summary of certain lines. Reshit chochma knei chochma. The beginning of wisdom is acquisition of wisdom. With all your acquisitions, make sure you acquire bina, which is translated here. Well, it's well done, as discernment. Hug her to you, meaning wisdom and Torah in general, and she will exalt you. She will bring you honor if you embrace her. She will adorn your head with a graceful wreath, crown you with a glorious diadem. It's like crown. Okay. Now, we are not going to get yet. In a couple of minutes, we'll come back to these psukim. I'm leaving on the screen. What I want to do is to kind of just say what's going to happen. What's been happening until this point. Take a drink just a second. So until this point, meaning these first few psukim, the first 9 psukim, this is a very much, Shlomo Melch is looking very much to the interior of the person. Heart, love, acquisition, embrace. This is very much a personal level, very much interior. And now, in the next few psukim, I broke it down. If you look at the slide, you'll see 3 sections. We're going to do one section at a time. He turns outward to what has to be the overarching question of all is what he said, okay, this is what you should do with Chokhmah. This is what you should do with wisdom. This is what you should do. Very good. Okay, now, what is a life that is shaped by Torah actually look like as you move through the world? What does it mean? So before we even get into his words, I will retell a story that I think really illustrates what the general question. Many years ago, coming us through 17, probably 25 years ago, I went to New York or New Jersey and went to a Young Israel Conference of Rabbis early in my career. And Rabbi Herschel Schachter of YU, the Rosh Hashanah of YU, was there, and he was going to be speaking. And immaterial about the whole talk he gave, which was magnificent, obviously, was the title of his talk, which I've never forgotten. It was called Choshen Mishpat, the forgotten section of Shulchan Aruch. Now, Shulchan Aruch is made up of 4 sections, or a Chaim, which is probably most familiar with day-to-day life. Washing the Tefillah, the dime, keeping Shabbat, what does a Chanukiah look like, all these things. And Even HaEzer, a marriage, divorce, vows, and other things. Yoredea Isser V'Heter, which is Yoredea has to do with like shechting and how to kosher an animal and what makes an animal kosher and Hilchot Talmud Torah, all kinds of things. The last one, which is called Choshen Mishpat, is civil law. I smack my car into your car. My pipe leaks into your apartment. Who's responsible? Those kind of things. And I will tell you, it is very true that there are certain communities that those kinds of questions never seem to come up. They don't ask Choshen Mishpat questions, and certain communities where the questions do come up, and they should. The problem is that not often people don't often understand that there's a question. I've seen other talks titled such as taking the Shulchan Aruch into the marketplace. What does that mean? It doesn't mean physically take an actual Shulchan Aruch, although it can, it's on your phone already. It means living by Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't mean that when you take your talis off in the morning, or you take your tefillin off in the morning, now you go to about your business, and business is business, and Torah is Torah. We'll get to the Torah later. No, it is part of your day. So the question here is, what exactly is a day, a life that's guided by Torah look like? So the next 9 or 10 psukim are not a warning of what's going to happen if you don't keep Torah, if you don't keep mitzvot. It's kind of a map. And we've talked about, it's been spoken about that Torah is a guide map, a map of life. But here you have in these few psukim where Shlomo HaMelech really lays down certain guidelines for us, that there are really two modes of existence, or two ways of walking through life, or two ways of walking. Seeing, he's going to talk about sleeping, eating, and understanding reality. So what I'm going to do is just look first at the first few psukim here, Yud through Yud Gimel, or number 10 through 13. Read them with the translation. Shema B'ni, once again, he's addressing each one of us as an individual, the parent voice. He already referred to his father, i.e. David HaMelech. That this is his explanation here is continuing as a continuity of Masorah, a continuity of passing down from generation to generation. Shema B'ni v'kach amarai. Heed and take in my words. V'yirbu lecha shenot chayim. And you will have many years, you will add many years to your life. B'derech chochma horeti. Actually, I'm going to read all this, but I'm going to first focus on for the first few psukim. B'derech chochma horeticha. I instruct you in the way of wisdom. Hidrachticha b'ma'aglei yosher. And I guide you in straight courses or paths. B'lechtecha le'yitzar tza'adecha. If you keep Torah and do mitzvot properly, you will walk without breaking stride. Bim tarutz lo tikashel. If you run, you will not stumble. This is not an assurance that you're not going to, God forbid, one day end up having to go to Yad Sarad but get some walking equipment. Doesn't mean that. It's a little bit deeper than that. Hachazek b'musar al teref. Hold fast to discipline. Nitzreha kihi chayecha. Do not let it go. Keep it. It is your life. Now, when I do this second section here, I'll explain why I have all these words in yellow, but a little later. Don't enter the path of the wicked. This first half of the pasuk should sound very similar or familiar to you, because it sounds like the beginning of Tehillim. Etc. So don't enter the path of the wicked. And don't walk in the way of evildoers. If you remember in Parag Gimel and even Parag Bet a little bit, there was all these symbolic ideas of getting involved with Rishayim and what the Rasha might say to you. Avoid it. Do not pass through it. Turn away. Pass by. He's talking about evildoers in general right now. Because they cannot sleep unless they have done evil. And unless they make someone fail, they are also robbed of sleep. They eat the bread of wickedness, and drink the wine of lawlessness. Last couple psukim. The path of righteousness, of the righteous, is like radiant sunlight. Ever brightening until noon. On the other hand, the way of the wicked is darkness, and they don't even know what will make them stumble. So we're going to go back to the first 3 or 4 psukim up there at the top of the slide. We're going to talk about that. The opening statement or promise, which sounds like a promise, the Yirbu lecha shenot chayim, is not a promise of longevity, just living a longer life, because you've already seen this idea before. It's not quantitative. It's also qualitative. It's giving more years, more life to your years, not just years to your life. It means with more coherence, not just survival. A person can live You could be lucky enough to live to 90, but as I've seen, and it's not my lot, I've seen it before. They say on a tombstone, died at 72, buried at 103, meaning that at 72 years old, this person was already, lying in the bed and just wasn't aware of anything, that they just existed. They weren't living. But what's saying is that Torah is not only Torah adds life to your years, not just years to your life. And that's a very important statement, because if you ask yourself the general question, and this is a theological question, a very deep question, which we're not going to go into right now, but we're only answering it with one or two sentences. Why in the world did Hashem create human beings? Why did he create the Jewish people? Why did he create the earth? Hashem lacked nothing. Nothing. Because to say Hashem needed an earth, Hashem needed people to do mitzvot, he did it. The most common line is to say that Hashem wanted to give out chesed, and he created man so he can give out, I say man, I mean human beings, to give out chesed, and so many other possible reasons. But let's put that aside, because that's a really existential question. It's a giant question. Why did Hashem create the world and create man? But we are here. Okay, we're going to start from that vantage point. Hashem created us. We're here. What's our goal? Our goal is, as we just talked about in Pirkei Avot the other day, is not about necessarily accumulating wealth, even though some people think it is. It's not about being able to have the biggest house or to have the fanciest car on vacation. It's not about having a library filled with books that you don't bother using. I say books, the Sifrei Kodesh. They're just there because they look nice. Where is the life going? Where are we going through this life? Only then, when you start really thinking about it, says Shlomo Melech, when we start to make it part of our lives, the Torah is incorporated into every moment, from the time we say Modeh Ani at night to the time we say Shema at night, in the morning, the time we say Shema at night, we go to sleep. We are guided. We have a ma'arechet. We have a system that we plug into, and that system we plug into is Torah. It shapes habits within us, routine, reflex. That's why Shlomo Melech doesn't say I walked you. He says Horeticha, I guided you, which is an Hidrachticha, I instructed you, I guided you. Those are very important. Very important verbs that he's using here. Wisdom educates towards something critical, and that's independence. It doesn't replace, needing to talk to people and get assistance, to look for guidance and for help. But a person needs to work towards some form of independence. When a child is 6 years old, they have a limited amount of independence. They may be able to go, down the street. They may be able, depending on what's the community of it, they may be able to, whatever it might be. By the time that child who was 6 is now 26, there's a higher level expectation in life in general. Same thing is true when it comes to Torah. We don't expect a child to be able to say Tikkun Chatzot in the middle of the night about the lack of a Beit HaMikdash, but we do expect at 6 years old, the child should be able to be saying brachot. So there are different levels of expectations, and that's also what wisdom does. It guides us towards that independence. The promise that follows in these psukim, or these couple psukim, is Lo yitzar tza'adecha. Your steps won't be constricted. V'im taruz lo tikashel. And even a certain momentum is not going to destroy you. What does it mean? The Torah doesn't prevent hastiness. It doesn't say, okay, slow down, the little red light flashing, you're walking too fast. It prevents misdirection. When you have proper guidance, you take it to heart, and you are aligned with the chokhmah that you're building, you can move quickly because there's no internal divide. What does that mean in normal English? When you have clarity, and we know that one of the most difficult things that a person can go through when they're trying to make a decision is trying to decide what is not only right, hopefully, right for themselves, but for the greater good, for their family. A person, there's a famous story in the Gemara, which we are going to be reading in just over a month, 3 weeks from now, on the night of the Seder. It says that he said that he was I'm like 70 years old. And his difference in Bavli and Yerushalmi, what does that mean? Was he really not 70? Maybe he was 70, and the Yerushalmi he was. In any case, what was going on there? He was about to take a new position. He was a young man. according to the Bavli. And he was offered the position of being the head of the academy. That's a huge, imagine a person's 18 years old and the Rosh Yeshiva, big yeshiva, leaves, and they offer this 18-year-old kid the position to be in charge of all the learning, hundreds and hundreds of Talmidim. So it says in the Gemara that he went to his wife and asked, what do I do? And that's a huge lesson. I've used this in teaching a little bit about zugiyut or relationships between husband and wife. You don't just unilaterally make a decision that affects an entire family or affects your spouse. You don't make a decision to make aliyah, you don't make a decision to take a job, you don't make a decision to even buy a car. There has to be some give and take and discussion. But once you have gotten to the point, let's say you're making a decision, stay with a job or quit, buy a car, not buy a car, go on a vacation, not go on a vacation, whatever the decision might be. So you're using your intellect, you're using your chokhmah, you're using your bina, your ability to discern right and wrong and good and bad. Hold on. Sorry. And at that point, once you have brought some clarification, or the way you bring clarification is because you're taking your life experience, you know what's good, what's not good, and you try to put it into a pro and con. Sorry. It's a pro and con, whatever it might be. And then you're able to move forward. The worst thing is to be stuck with a safek. What's safek? A doubt. So there is an expression, I don't remember, I've seen it many places. Might be the Gemara, might be Midrash, I don't remember where it is exactly. Ein simcha keheter svekot. There's no greater joy than erasing, getting rid of a doubt. You come with clarity. So when you are stuck, when you can't make a decision, then you may stumble. You may fall, and not in the literal sense. And that's what he's talking about over here. When you follow the chokhmah that I'm trying to, l'horeticha and hidaraticha, then you're going to walk without breaking stride. You're going to run without stumbling because you're going to go headlong into what you need to do because you know it's the right thing. Once you make a decision, and by the way, it might be the wrong decision, and that's okay. You'll learn from it. But once you make the decision, instead of second guessing it, go forward. Make the decision and move on with it, as long as it's based on good information that you're using. When doubt is replaced with wisdom, then you can move forward deliberately. And the emphatic statement coming with that is kihi chayach. These words right here, the last three words in this first paragraph. What does it mean, kihi chayach? Not that it improves your life. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say it guides your life. It says it is your life. This is very much what we've seen in Chazal, Ein Chaim Ela Torah, but it's not metaphorically. What does it mean? This life is Torah is life. What does that mean? It's not a metaphor. It's okay. So let's do it like this: a different approach, not different, but a different idea. Every one of us, unless you were born into a very wealthy family, which if you were, congratulations. Every one of us has had to work all of our lives, good part of our lives, some of our lives. My first job, I was 17, maybe 17 years old, something like that. My first paying job. I worked selling radio advertising as my first real encounter with anti-Semitism too. In any case, so from the time I was, 17, and some start much earlier, I know that, until this past year. I mean, I still work in quotes, I still teach privately and all, but I don't get a paycheck anymore. So I've put in my time, and we all have put in our time or continue to put in our time. But imagine now you get your job. You've been wanting to be a salesperson. You wanted to be a mechanic. You wanted to be a plumber. You wanted to be a doctor. You want to be whatever it might be. You get there on the first day, and you're going to take this position. The first few things you need to know: where's the bathroom? Where's the copy machine? Where's the coffee? That might come first, actually. At least for me, it would. Now, when you interview, you may have had a CV, a resume. They may have given you a little job of what's required, what are the requirements for the position. But those are kind of not vague, but they're not detailed. It may say good with Microsoft Works, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, and whatever else it might be. Great. Well, you find out now, day one of your job, and your boss or your mentor, whoever's going to be, is going to give you the guidebook of what your job is. It's either going to be an actual document, if it's a good company where they document what you have to do, or it's going to be a verbal description where you better be taking notes and tell you what you're supposed to do. What does that mean, though? That means that when you walk in at 9, take the American numbers of a 9 to 5 job. You walk in at 9 o'clock or 10 to 9, and you're there until just after 5 because you're going to put in a full day. From the time you walk in to the time you walk out, there is a structure that you're supposed to follow. That doesn't mean that until you want to go to the bathroom, drink coffee, or have lunch. The lunch they make. But it tells you that if you're supposed to be an accountant, that you're not supposed to be spending your time trying to make a sales call. And if you're supposed to be a salesman, you're not supposed to be trying to crunch numbers on a computer with having nothing to do with your job, because that might be a different department. You have a structure. You are plugging into that job description. That's what the Chokhmah, that's what the Torah is. It's not just, here's a whole book of rules, follow them. God forbid. It's not. That's not what it is. What it is a guide for life. What are we supposed to do on a Yom Shlishi? What are we supposed to do on Yom Shabbat? What are we supposed to do on Rosh Hashanah? What are we supposed to do on Yom Kippur? What are you supposed to do on a Thursday afternoon? We know. It doesn't say day by day. The Torah doesn't give us explicit direction and instruction day by day, minute by minute, exactly. But then we have the Shulchan Aruch that guides us, and it's 4 sections. Remember that. All these different things that guide us. You bumped into somebody's car or something. There's ramifications to that, not just in civil law, halacha as well. You don't know is your tefillin, are the tefillin square? How many candles for Shabbat? How do you do for Shat Challah? Everything. It's all there for us. And that's what he means here in this first section. I'm guiding you, I'm telling you, because this is life. This is how you're going through life, and it will give you more quality of life. The next group here, which is what I really want to spend more time on tonight than this first section, is almost sounds like it's Shlomo HaMelech is breathless when he's telling us all this. If you look at it, you'll notice all these. I didn't even highlight them all, but these are verbs, right? Tavo, ta'asher, ra'ehu, ta'avor, t'sete. The lachamu is over here, but these are verbs. It's don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, avoid this, avoid that, turn away from this, pass by this, blah, 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 blah. Like boom, 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 boom in your face, right? What's he telling us here? Mitzudat David tells us that what Shlomo HaMelech fears on our behalf, what we'll call right now incremental exposure. Incremental exposure means, in this case, that evil rarely is chosen in one step. Very few people will wake up, who are even the worst of worst people, unless, of course, they are mentally ill, will wake up one day and say, I'm going to go out and kill somebody because that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to do today. Or, you know what, I'm going to knock off a liquor store. I'm going to go up to Mickey's Makol, I'm going to steal 100 shekel worth of food. You generally don't just wake up out of the blue and do that. It may be sometimes, God forbid, because of need. I don't mean the murder. I mean stealing. It could be other reasons. But it doesn't happen overnight that someone becomes a really bad person. It happens gradually by lingering, legitimizing the action. I'm just kind of passing through, kind of glancing. And that's why there's this escalation described in these words in the yellow and other verbs. Don't enter. Don't straighten the path. Break it up. Divert completely. This word here usually is spelled with a samach instead of a sin. They're interchangeable in Tanakh often. The samach, this stia. If I say to you there was a stia, it means there was a diversion from something. If you use move it, you will sometimes see, if you use it in Hebrew, you'll see that it says that a bus did a stia. It diverted from its original path. Because whatever reason. So stay me'alav va'avot. Just divert, get out of the way. Just don't hang out there. So, and that's not paranoia. It's being realistic. What I want to do is I want to look at the topics I mentioned in the not the introduction, but the message I sent out yesterday or whenever it was. I want to look at the progression of addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or anything else. The progression of addiction. Go through that for a few minutes, and then we're going to plug in the Torah aspect. We're going to see how they match up, like one for one, with what we're talking about here. Shlomo HaMelech was the Chacham Mikol Adam, was the smartest of all people, and he understood because he also messed up. We know that he messed up because it says you shouldn't have too many horses, you shouldn't have too many wives, you shouldn't have too much riches. So he did. He had some problems as a result. So he's also speaking from some experience, both also from his own and from what he had witnessed. So let's talk about. Let me take it off of the screen share for right now. We don't need it. Put this here. Okay. When I was in high school, I had the opportunity, if I had wanted. It would have been difficult then to figure out exactly how, but had I wanted to try the same marijuana, I would have been able to find somebody, I'm sure. I didn't. I had no desire, never had a desire to try drugs. Baruch Hashem, never entered my mind. But there were guys, of course. There's no, by the way, any school, any yeshiva, any seminary, any place that tells you we have no drug problem, we have no alcohol problem, we have no anything, we have absolutely zero. I don't know what they're smoking. Anyways, everyone has the problem. I don't mean every individual, but every institution, especially the bigger they are, there are issues somewhere. They may not be big, but there are problems. So anyways, so what happens in the beginning? A person's cautious. They say to themselves, I'll just try it one time. I'm in control. I'm not like that guy lying on the street drooling on himself. I'll try it. I'll be able to get by with just once. There's a hesitation. There's self-imposed limits. They already know they're not to do certain. There are rules. I'm going to drink only socially, only at Kiddush. Or, of course, if there's a Shalom Zachar. Of course, if the bris. Oh, if it's a Pinyan Ben. Okay, whatever it might be. Oh, the sun came out. Whatever it might be. Maybe only on weekends. Maybe only small amounts. At that stage, early on, a person will still feel that he has control over his behavior. As an aside note, I am using this example or this topic right now, because I say like it plugs in so well, but it's a serious problem for a lot of people and requires, in some cases, psychological help, includes self-help groups, all kinds of stuff. It doesn't just these things don't go away by themselves. But at the beginning, a person still feels they had their first joint, they had one drink, whatever it might be, I'm in control. It's not a problem. Which, by the way, you generally can't say after you tried things like Coke. You're not in control. Neurologically, though, what's happening neurologically? The brain has a reward system, which I'm sure you all know, something called dopamine. It releases it. And that experience of the extra dopamine is feeding a relief, pleasure, an escape, and that the association is already being made in the head between that release of dopamine and that action. If I knew that by my picking up the phone, I would feel happiness every single time, I would probably carry it around in my hand all the time. I probably do anyways, but that's a different story, as we do, especially now. But if I knew that every time I smoked a joint, that it make me super happy and I feel no pain, and maybe there was things bothering me in my life I wouldn't anymore, and that dopamine and that pleasure and that escape, maybe I'm going to do it again. The external behavior, whether it's the smoking or the drinking or whatever it might be, or the shooting up, may seem small. But internally, the associations are already being formed between the action and the dopamine, the escape, whatever it might be. And then what happens? Wasn't a friend of mine, a guy I knew in Chicago, who I had not seen for easily 35, 40 years. I happened to talk to him a few years back. And he used to be with Shomer Shabbat. He grew up in a Shomer Shabbat home. I knew his parents very well. His father was Shalom. His mother, she should live and be well. But he wasn't religious anymore for many years. And we got to talking. I said, how come? What happened? So he gave me the standard junk. Oh, it's my teacher's fault and all that. But whatever it might be. Sometimes it is true. I said, well, what happened? What did you do? He said, well, the first time I decided on Shabbat, he probably said Shabbos. First time I said on Shabbos, I went and I turned the light on. I noticed when I did that, there was not a strike of bolt of lightning that killed me. I said, okay, that's cool. He said, that's all I did that Shabbos. The next week, he's tried it a couple of times. There was no bolts of lightning. So he continued for a few weeks. He's kind of building it up. He said, nothing bad happened. I handled it fine. It actually helps me relax because I have the light on. Before I didn't have the light. These are exactly the same patterns that happen in addictions. I tried that once. I smoked that one, whatever it might be. Nothing happened. I felt good. I'm okay. I'm in control. I was able to relax. It moves, though. The behavior moves from curiosity because the first time sometimes it's just because of peer pressure. No, I'm not talking about that. Person makes a decision on their own. They want to try it. It's curiosity. And then it goes from curiosity, it moves to a pattern. Frequency increases. Boundaries begin to shift a little gradually, slowly. The shift might be subtle. Psychologically, this is what's called normalization. You normalize an unusual behavior. There's a Gemara, which I'm going to mention later, but I think right now would be the good time to mention it too. Gemara says in multiple places, I'll just say it in English, when a person does an Avera 3 times, a person sins 3 times, it becomes permitted to them. Gemara says, permitted? You think it's okay? They're thinking now, like if I write on Shabbat 3 times, now it's okay for me to do forever? It says no. In their minds, it becomes as if it's okay to do. Meaning, first, oh my God, I wrote on Shabbat, I did this. But after a while, it became a little easier. It says 3 times because we know the concept of chazakah, doing something that it entrenches itself into either halacha or into yourself. So that's called normalization. Then you have a problem with what you had now wasn't enough. That one drink, that was good, but the one drink isn't enough anymore. Let me try maybe a second one and see how that goes. Or just pour a bigger drink. And I can handle it. It's no problem at all. The same amount that he had the first time that gave him that rush doesn't have the same effect anymore. So they need to try it. It's called tolerance. You start building up a tolerance, and you need a little more. You need it a little stronger, a little bit more often. Not dramatically, just incrementally. That shift could sound like something like, I'm going to just add a little bit more. I can handle it. It's not that much more. It's small relative to the pre. Look, before I didn't have anything. Now I've had 1 drink. So I'll have 2, or it's a second joint I'll have this week. The cumulative distance, though, that a person travels in the metaphorical form of speech becomes very significant. And that's how escalation begins. Not big, giant leaps, little steps. Then you start to get dependence. The substance or the behavior is no longer just pleasure. By the way, a person can be addicted to stealing. Could be a kleptomaniac. God forbid, a pyromaniac, say God forbid, because that really can kill people besides themselves. So can the other things in other ways. But now the substance of the behavior is no longer just about pleasure. It's about regulation. Now they have to regulate. They have to start to rely. They have to learn to use it to cope with stress, to numb discomfort, escape boredom, manage anxiety. It moves from I want this is a gigantic step, I want this, to I need this. I have never said to myself, I may have said it as a joke, like, oh, I really could use a drink. I don't really drink. I like wine on Shabbat. I like beer once in a while. The hard stuff, once, especially once in a Yovel. Yovel is every 50 years. Once in a Yovel. Okay, very rare, very rare. And when I've had it, it's good. I mean, I like it, but it's not like, oh my gosh, you have to have it. So if I went to, let's say I'm at a kiddush with certain people and they want to make it l'chaim, fine, I'll have, just pour me this little bit of much, this little bit of much, this much. So I have, I want it at that point. I don't need it. Definitely don't need it. And that's the dangerous pivot. From the I want this to I need this. The behavior is no longer optional in that person's world. You've lost your ability at that moment to say, I'm going to choose to have it or choose not to. You have now gotten to the point where you're physically your mind, and many other places need this activity or this action. At that stage, you've lost a sense of control. Doesn't mean you've lost control of your life. Doesn't mean you've lost control of your marriage, your family, or doesn't mean that. It means you've lost control of this action. Limits are broken, promises are violated, attempts to start, I'm going to stop. I promise myself, I promise my spouse, I promise my family, I'm going to go to an AA meeting, whatever it might be. The person outwardly may still function fine. And sometimes very well, you don't know. But internally, moment by moment, there's a diminished level of control for that individual. And because that level of control is being diminished, the flip side is that escalation becomes faster. Meaning, it could have been that between the first time he had one drink and the next time he had his second drink at the same time, may have been 2 or 3 weeks. But then when he's up to 5 drinks or 6 drinks, it's boom, that could be happening in succession pretty quickly if a person doesn't pay attention. I'm going to read a sentence to you. Addiction does not usually begin with recklessness. It begins with caution, then comfort, then normalization, then dependence, then compulsion. It's step by step, almost imperceptibly. This before we continue with the later psukim, let's go look now and review the psukim we just did. Let's talk about this idea of what Shlomo HaMelech is trying to tell us in these few psukim. This idea of don't do this, don't do this, don't stray down here, steer away from it completely, is a very similar pattern of how addiction works. Very similar, almost an uncanny familiarity. The Yetzer Hara does not begin with open rebellion. The Yetzer Hara doesn't say to the person one day, give up Shabbat, that's it, it's all over, just walk away. It doesn't work that way. It begins very gently. Hayom omer lo aseh kach. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat says, the Yetzer Hara says to you, do this today. So he says like this, the Gemara says, kach umanato shel Yetzer Hara. This is the job, what the Yetzer Hara does. Hayom omer lo aseh kach. He says, today, do this, just a little thing, just take a little bite of the fruit of the tree. And the next day he says, if I already did that, a little bit more. To the point where he says, worship avodah zarah. It does not mean everybody who does a sin and listens to their Yetzer Hara is going to worship idols. That's absolutely not what it means. But it's just trying to give us a concept of how far a person can potentially go in whatever they get sucked into. It doesn't say, the Gemara doesn't say, this is the way the Yetzer Hara. He tries to get you to serve an idol. It's not his point. It's taking the extreme example to tell you that you could potentially get to the extreme example by starting off with something minor, something that doesn't seem like, oh, big deal. You really think God cares how I do X? I've heard that many times. It starts with something small. Say, do this little thing. Maybe it's even in some, yeshomrim that it's okay, but you rely on that too much, and it's a little. That's the first stage. Exactly the same first stage as addiction. It's not a collapse. It's permission. You haven't collapsed. When you take that first drink, you didn't collapse. When you do that first avera, whatever it leads you down the wrong path, you didn't collapse. But you gave yourself permission to do something that you didn't have permission to do per se. The Ramban tells us in Parashat Kedoshim to you should be holy, that a person can become what's called a Naval Birshut HaTorah, a person who lives a slovenly, indulgent life with permission of the Torah. What does that mean? Am I allowed to eat 8 hamburgers? The answer would be, if my wife's not around. Now, the answer would be, yes, halachically I could. But the problem with that is that it's despicable, it's disgusting to eat 8 hamburgers, of course, unless they're meatball size. But take 8 200-gram hamburgers and pound them back with the ketchup and onions and bun and all that. It's gross already. Is it halachically okay? Halachically, it's okay, as long as you wash and you bench and you made your proper brachot. But this is the escalation with legitimacy. It's allowed. It's under control. It's defensible. But slowly that behavior shifts, where indulgence becomes a lifestyle. That's who I am. And that's how addictive patterns begin as well. Not through violation, but through excess. The one drink becomes 3 drinks, becomes 5 drinks. The one hamburger becomes, it's not, I'm eating hamburgers. Let's say the one Avera that's small becomes a bigger Avera, which becomes a bigger Avera, and then becomes an excessive Avera. And we know, Gemara in Pirkei Avot tells us, Avera goreret Avera. One Avera drags another sin along. What does that mean? Once you jump into the deep end, now, it doesn't mean that if you speak Lashon Hara, you're for sure going to not keep Shabbat. They travel in generally in different worlds. But when you allow yourself to say just, it's not really Lashon Hara because it's public and everyone knows it. And besides which, I'm sure he knows it already anyways. Then it slowly can build to, oh, you got to hear what I just heard, right? So it grows. One Avirah leads to another Avirah. Not because of punishment. It's not like you're being punished. Oh, you did one Avirah, now Hashem's going to make you do another Avirah. First, Hashem doesn't make you do that. It doesn't work. Otherwise, he takes away your free choice. But it's conditioning, very much like an addiction. You become conditioned to doing something. Every action reshapes the person. Maral explains that a person really becomes aligned with what they do repeatedly. We actually seen this in a positive sense in the Sefer HaChinuch, which I've quoted many times, I'm sure, in different classes. Hold on a second. It'll come to me. Based on a person's actions, his heart is drawn towards that, which is why you say, when you do something not for the right reason, keep doing it. Eventually you can do it for the right reason. But again, this idea that you lower your resistance to the next level, the threshold that you set for yourself will shift. You can say, look, I might just go on my phone on Shabbat. No one's going to know the difference. I'll go in my room. I'll check my messages, and I'll check my stocks, whatever it might be. No one's going to know. Who cares? Big deal. You think God really cares about that? But then once you've done that, you say, everybody was on my phone. So you know what? Maybe I'll turn on the computer also to check that. Send a couple emails. The guy's not Jewish. He doesn't know about Shabbat anyways. This idea mirrors the tolerance we spoke about in addictions. First time is difficult. Second time is easier. And the third time feels normal. It's a spiritual numbness, desensitization. It's exactly what happens in these psukim. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop here because there's a Gemara in Masechet Sukkah that really gives a perfect corollary between mitzvot and avirot on one hand and addictions on the other. I'm going to talk about that. I'll put it up on the screen next week. Bezrat Hashem. As of now, we should be meeting on Sunday, which is Tuesday, which is Thursday, which is Yom Shlishi. Who knows what day of the week is it? It was like little shades of Corona going on here. I'm not the only person. I've heard plenty of people like, what day is today? I don't know. You lose time. But Bezrat Hashem, we will hopefully meet again next Sunday. And Rosh Chodesh is coming up next week. And we know it says, B'Nisan Nig'alu, B'nai Yisrael were redeemed in Nisan, Yetziat Mitzrayim, Nisan Atidim Lehid Ga'el, and they will be redeemed again in the future in Nisan. Coming to Nisan, we're witnessing world-shifting events with incredible speed. So we have I'm happy to see it before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Rosh Chodesh Nisan this year, pack your bags to get ready to go to Beit HaMikdash. And Bezrat Hashem, when it is rebuilt and we have Mashiach, our first class will be right outside the Beit HaMikdash. I'll put up a big sign. You'll be able to find me, I promise.
Bezrat Hashem.
Very good.
Bezrat Hashem.
God willing.
Thank
Can't wait.
Thank you, everybody.
Can't wait.
Amen. Me too.